In the first video in our series of animated fleet breakdowns, we covered Thrawn's primary fleet in the Thrawn campaign. Today we're going to be talking about Solo Command, the fleet led by Han Solo in the X-Wing books against Warlord Zsinj in the hunt for him, and his Executor-class flagship Iron Fist. There are actually a few battles in this campaign which I'll probably break down directly on their own later, but the point for today is more to go over the fleet itself rather than detailing any particular battle. So what you're seeing on screen has some resemblance to a few battles, but it's not meant to be a replica of any of them. Han's fleet was made up of 13 ships divided into 3 groups by the last operations of his campaign against Zsinj, which is how we're going to be talking about it today, though other situations see the fleet more mixed depending on specific assignments, so those 3 groupings weren't really a hard and fast rule. The first group we're going to be talking about was commanded by Han himself, and was led from the flagship Mon Raimondo, which acted as the flagship of the entire fleet. Mon Raimondo was commanded directly by Captain Enoma, and was of the MC-80B type, which were some of the most powerful warships of the early New Republic, and something of a transition between Mon Calamari's conversion of non-military vessels under the Rebellion to the creation of a pure military vessel like the later MC-90. Mon Raimondo was the first ship of this type, and it was part of Akbar's fleet during the liberation of Coruscant, where it took on the ISD Triumph. Under Han's command, it led the rest of the fleet in many engagements with Warlord Zsinj directly, including the destruction of the Razor's Kiss, a second Executor-class Zsinj had been trying to capture, and it even stood up against Iron Fist itself on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, Mon Raimondo was destroyed in the Reborn Emperor's campaigns in the Battle of Mon Calamari, where it was eaten by a world devastator. Its fighter complement during the hunt for Zsinj included the famous Rogue Squadron, Wedge Antilles' new pet project, Wraith Squadron, an A-Wing squadron named Polearm, and a B-Wing squadron named Nova. This primary group also included a second Mon Calamari cruiser of the older Liberty variety, named Mon Cairn, which was also responsible for asking to speak to the manager. Mon Cairn was host to the X-Wing Squadron Corsair and 2 additional Y-Wing squadrons. Rounding out this group were the Nebulon B frigate Tedivium, which had been serving as a training ship just prior, and the Marauder-class corvette Etherhawk, which was described in Solo Command as being, quote, just one restoration job ahead of being dilapidated. This second group consists of a second MC-80 cruiser of the same type as Mon Cairn, the Mondalindo, the Imperial 2 Star Destroyer Skyhook, the Quasar-class carrier Battle Dog, and another Nebulon B designated as a medical frigate for the fleet, Warden. Mondalindo I have seen referred to as another MC-80B class in some places, but in Solo Command the book, it's referred to as being far more similar to Mon Cairn and significantly less powerful than Mon Raimondo, so it seems to most likely be a regular Liberty type and not another MC-80B. Battle Dog's captain isn't named here, but in the novel Starfighters of Adamar, it implies it's Greg Saliban, a character who by then is the captain of the Allegiance, another Star Destroyer in Solo's fleet at the time of the Hunt for Zsinj, which we're going to get to in a moment. This group's fighters were actually somewhat more mixed than the others, with the Battle Dog having some ancient cloak-shaped fighters, and with the Skyhook still having its original complement of Imperial ties, mostly flown by former Imperial pilots who had joined the New Republic since its capture. This third group is home to even more captured Star Destroyers. It contains the aforementioned ISD-1 Allegiance, the ISD-2 Crynid, and the Corellian corvette Seon Strike. Crynid never gets explicitly mentioned as a 2 in the books, but it appears in some art for Dark Forces, which shows it with the bridge style and, as far as I can make out, also the turrets of an ISD-2. Under the Empire, the Crynid had a different name and was commanded by a sadist named Purdy, before being boarded by New Republic forces on the dreadnought New Hope, and being named after the pilot in Green Squadron at the Battle of Endor who hits the bridge of the Executor, Arvel Crynid. The Complete Encyclopedia mentions the ship as being destroyed in the fight with Imperial Warlord Teradoc's Greater Maldrude, which took place just after the Hunt for Zsinj, making it one of the few ships we do know the later fate of in this group, and one of the only ones that doesn't ultimately survive the Zsinj and post-Zsinj campaigns. As I said earlier, Allegiance does show up later as well in Starfighters of Adamar, under former Battle Dog Captain Saliban, so that makes this group a bit more complete than the others as far as knowing what happens to it afterwards. The Seon Strike plays a pretty big role in the Wraith Squadron books overall. It had originally been part of Warlord Zsinj's forces under Z'rell Darillion, and then gets captured by Wraith Squadron, who impersonates Z'rell, and uses it in a series of covert actions, before it ultimately joins Han's command directly under the new name Seon Strike. One of Zsinj's agents and a future Wraith Squadron member, Lara Notsil, remarks that there are 13 vessels in Han's fleet. The 13th, which we haven't talked about so far, was named Void Runner by Aaron Alston on his own website, but never made it into any official published works. So your mileage may vary on whether it should be included. I did include it here as part of Group 3. Nolan Starr, a friend from the Thrawn's Revenge dev team, was able to find a cached version of the website where Aaron Alston breaks this down, so I decided to include it. Beyond the fighters that were mentioned as being on Mon Raimondo, there were a few other notable squadrons that were included in this fleet. So on top of Rogue, Wraith, Polearm, Nova, and Corsair, we also know the names of Hive Flight, which was stationed with Group 2 primarily on Mondalindo. Battle Dog squadrons included Shadow Squadron and Lightning Squadron. Then in Group 3 on Allegiance, we have an X-Wing squadron named Gauntlet, and the captain of the Seon Strike after the Battle of Levian 2 is mentioned as being Captain Atril Taban. There was one final ship that was heavily associated with Solo Command, but wasn't technically part of it. For several of their operations, Han was able to work with an Imperial commander, Terran Rogris, who also saw Zsinj as a major threat. In order to help stop Zsinj, Rogris loaned Han the use of the Immobilizer 418 named Stellar Web. Although they came close, Han's fleet did not quite destroy Iron Fist. That wouldn't happen until the Battle of Dathomir, where the Hapen fleet was able to finally wipe out the Warlord, which is another of our potential battle videos to do. Han's fleet was definitely one of the more powerful elements of the New Republic's early military, considering they were tasked with beating what was at the time considered to be the New Republic's biggest military threat. But that's going to do it for our look at Solo Command. I mentioned it in an earlier video this week, but my goal with this series is to release about one per month, maybe more if time and resources permit, because these videos are a lot more time intensive to make than the other standard lore videos. And I want to try to learn one new skill per video, or one general improvement for video, especially early on. I really wanted to have fighters in this video, but I figured it would be a decent topic for sticking with the overall fleet focus, while also giving me a good opportunity to play with some of the environmental effects and that side of things. So I hope the differences here are a big improvement compared to the last video. That and learning the basics of doing the lasers. Soon that'll hopefully add up to being able to do our first proper battle animation. Either way, if you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like or subscribe for more. If there's a particular fleet or battle you'd like to see covered in this series, or just another general lore topic you'd want to see me cover in our more standard videos, please leave that in the comments as well. As with last time, all the models used in this video are from the Empire at War Expanded mod, so I'd like to thank Evil Bob the Bob once again for allowing me to use his Mon Calamari textures and his Imperial Star Destroyer model and textures, Aceritzel for allowing me to use the Mon Calamari models, Dr. Nick for the Quasar model and texture, Farshot for the Marauder model, and then the Marauder texture, the Executor, the Nebulon B, and the Krelling Corvette were all made by myself. There will be a link to Empire War Expanded Thrawn's Revenge in the description for those who want to check that out as well. I've been additionally working on a galaxy map in Blender to replace the one that I sometimes use in After Effects, which basically should just render way faster, which will mean it's something I can use a lot more often. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.